Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening for some of you who are on in other parts of the country. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Laura Schilling, and I'm the Teacher Programs Coordinator here at LACMA. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a fair-skinned white woman with curly blonde hair with kind of a swirly patterned purple shirt. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the third installment of the Educator Speaker Series, which is a relatively new LACMA program that provides space for teachers to present on important topics in art education that center criticality and social justice. Today, we are incredibly fortunate to be joined by arts educator Flavia Zuñiga-West, who will be speaking with us about culturally responsive teaching in the arts classroom. And this is a topic that I'm personally very excited and grateful to be able to learn more about. So I will be taking notes diligently throughout this whole presentation. If you would like to access captions throughout the presentation, please click live transcript on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen and then click show subtitle. Again, if you want to access captions today, click live transcript on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen and then show subtitle. My colleague Susie Castillo is providing tech support today, so if you have any issues with the captions or any other tech related questions, please send her a private message. Susie, do you want to come on real quick and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, y'all. I'm Susie Castillo. I am a fair-skinned Latina woman, have short black hair. It's clipped back. And if y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me a message in the chat.
Thank you so much, Susie. Susie keeps everything going behind the scenes, so we're really grateful to have her support. If you haven't done so, take a moment to rename yourselves to include your pronouns, and please let us know what you teach and provide an acknowledgement of the Indigenous lands that you are currently on in the chat. And in that vein, I would like to begin the program by sharing a land acknowledgement from my current residence on occupied Tongva land in South Los Angeles. So we can go to the land acknowledgement slide. There we go. LACMA respectfully acknowledges that the lands on which our museum is built and the region that we serve is the ancestral and unceded territories of the Gabrielino Tongva, Gabrielino Kich, Fernandino Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples. Los Angeles County has been and is home to many Indigenous peoples. As an art museum and a collecting institution, LACMA recognizes the role we play in the continual displacement of Indigenous peoples and is committed to working to dismantle the ongoing effects of this colonial legacy, building networks of support for local Indigenous groups and being better stewards of the land we occupy. And I also want to share an artwork with you that can currently be experienced on LACMA's campus using a unique Snapchat lens. The artwork is by local Indigenous artist Mercedes Dorame, and it is called Portal for Tovangar. Like the name suggests, the artwork creates an immersive portal that links past, present, and potential future worlds. Viewers engage with what continues to inspire many Native people: the sky, the land, Indigenous plant life, celestial bodies, and the infinite ability to connect to these entities and with each other. So we're going to watch a quick video. It's about a minute long, in which Dorame talks about her artwork. I'm not getting any sound. Let's see if we can workshop this.
It's not coming through for me. Laura, do you have the video? Do you mind just pulling it up? Maybe that's the best way to quickly.
Yes, I can go ahead and pull up the video.
Apologies, I'm not sure what's going on.
That's okay, it happens. Give me just a second, folks. We're almost there, pulling up the website. I really want to share this video with you.
You could put a link to the video in the chat.
I think AR has a potential to impact the art world in the way that it gives a level of accessibility that is not tied to a specific place. Oeshkoneha Netwanyane Mercedes Dorme, Komikrave Guashna, Itovanga, I Aweshkoneha. My name is Mercedes Dorme. I'm from Los Angeles, also known as Tovangar. I'm the artist behind the lens Portal for Tovangar. What is the lens that I'm asking people to see through in order to engage with these ideas and the Tonga presence in the city? I really wanted that kind of peripheral sound and experience to be part of it. And it's also to remember the land that we are all on, the land that we're connected to, and to remember the continuum of presence of the Native people in this space. It allows for the dislocation of the physical laws that we operate in. I liked being able to levitate stones into the air and have these salt crystals floating upwards. I want this project to be an expansion of perception, an expansion of experience, and an expansion of imagination.
Great, thanks everybody for bearing with us. So kind of in a similar spirit, I also wanted to talk to you briefly about a new project that the LA County Department of Arts and Culture is doing right now. They're commissioning a new artwork that will be located on a trail that's going to be created near the Ford Theater in the Hollywood Hills. And they're seeking community input on what the artwork should represent or address. I personally see this as an amazing opportunity to center Indigenous voices. And I have suggested that they commission an Indigenous artist for this project. You can, of course, make recommendations that feel most appropriate to you. Either way, I want to encourage you to participate in this civic process if you're located in Los Angeles County. And Susie's going to share a document in the chat that has all kinds of links about today's program, and it includes a link to a survey that the county has created to elicit feedback. So definitely check that out. The document has a lot of great links about programs that I'm going to be sharing today. So we can go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about a resource that is connected to the Educator Speaker Series. It's an online course called Art and Social Justice. In this course, we talk about artworks by 6 American artists who raise awareness around social justice issues such as labor rights, racism, and immigrant rights. The course is aligned with the California History Social Science content standards for grades 8 to 12, and it really sits at the intersection of art, activism, politics, and history. It's self-paced. You can start it and come back to it at any time. There's also a link in that same document that Susie is sharing to a related resource that we developed with another educator from the Educator Speaker Series last May, Alicia Murnick. So be sure to check that out as well. There's some really great content in there. And if we go to the next slide, the next thing I want to share about is Evenings for Educators, which is our long-standing professional development program for K-12 teachers, which I'm really happy to share recently received a Superintendent's Award for Excellence in Museum Education, recognizing this last year of virtual programming. We were just so incredibly honored to receive this award, and honestly, we're maybe just as honored by the letters that some of you wrote in support of the program. We're so thankful to all of you who have been attending this program for years. It's been going on for about 40 years now. And we're excited to kick off this new season with a focus in October on art, resilience, and healing. We felt it was really important to acknowledge and respond to the events of the last year and a half and provide you with creative resources for supporting your students right now. So please join us October 12th. We'll have a great presentation with art teacher Sydney Snyder, and on the 14th, 19th, and 21st for hands-on workshops with LACMA teaching artists. Next slide, please. And the next program I'm going to share is a special workshop for teachers on November 3rd, led by the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. on the Obama portraits, which some of you may already know are currently on tour and will be opening at LACMA on November 7th, just very exciting. In this workshop, you will learn how to interpret the portraits and make connections to your curriculum. There's also going to be a really special opportunity for teachers to come to LACMA after hours in December to view the portraits in person. So make sure you're signed up for our mailing list in order to get those communications. And the information on how to sign up is also in the document that Susie shared. And finally, we have another Educator Speaker Series program on November 10th. Just go back one slide, perfect. At that time, we will be joined by artist and educator Ada Pinkston, who will talk about her LACMA Snapchat project on historic Angelino Biddy Mason, who was a Black woman who arrived in California as an enslaved person in 1851, subsequently petitioned for her freedom, and became a really important community leader in Los Angeles. We'd love to see you at that program and all of the other programs that are coming up, so make sure you register online. The document in the chat has all the info you need. So let's get into today's program. Joining us to talk about culturally responsive teaching in the arts classroom is Flavia Zuñiga-West. Flavia is an arts educator, curator, professional development facilitator, and founder of the nationally renowned Adding Voices Conference and Symposium. She does it all. Flavia specializes in culturally responsive curriculum development that utilizes critical multiculturalism pedagogy, Black and Chicana feminist theory, and anti-racist frameworks in order to reframe the art historical canon by centering contemporary BIPoC artists in her work and the work she does with students. Additionally, Flavia offers professional development opportunities for art teachers, museum educators, community arts instructors, and teaching artists through regional and district workshops, webinars, and keynote engagements. Welcome, Flavia. We're so thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, and it's wonderful to see all these faces. Hello, everybody. I'm going to actually stop the screen sharing so I can see faces for those of you who want to share your faces. And hello to lots of familiar faces out there that I see and names. Hi to some of my colleagues who are also joining today and Instagram friends and all of that. Hello. My name is Flavia Zuñiga-West. I am a light-skinned Black and Chicana woman. My hair is dark brown and up in a bun. I'm wearing very fun earrings that are picturing two women with afros. And I am wearing a white collared shirt with a black tie. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you today and to do this exciting work. And it's wonderful to see not only is like California represented in this space, but we got folks from all over. So hello, everyone. We're going to be using the chat a lot to respond and have the conversations that we're having today. We're going to talk about culturally relevant pedagogy by actually experiencing it. I'm hoping that with you, you have either a notepad, a journal, and something to write or draw with that will help us on our journey today, so to speak. Okay, here we go. All right, here's my screen. I'm going to pin myself and minimize. Overall, today, we are going to figure out what culture responsive teaching really is, and why culture and what is culture? Why is it so important? We're going to delve deep into the benefits of culture responsive teaching, every day, what that looks like in the classroom, and then how to integrate it into art projects or just every day in your lives, in your classrooms. As I know, for me, I currently right now teach middle school and high school visual arts at an independent school in Los Angeles. So that's what I spend most of my time doing. And I'm not sure if there's anything else I technically need to tell you about myself now, other than I love teaching. And it was a long day today, and it continues to be, but I'm so excited to be here with you. I'd like us all to hold our brothers and sisters from Haiti and Haitian descent right now in our hearts and our minds as they are experiencing such violence in the world right now. Please, if you can, think of those out there that you can give to in any way. Alrighty. Culturally responsive teaching. I probably fangirl more than I should admit around Zaretta Hammond. This book changed my life as a teacher. I'm coming in my 10th year teaching, which I'm very proud of. Before that, I was curating and teaching in the museum setting. And I read this book, Culture Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta Hammond, and it almost gave a name for what I was doing in the classroom, but I didn't really fully understand it. And then it helped me grow and formalize that. I am proudly a second generation teacher. Both my mother and father are teachers, LAUSD, and then my father in independent schools. And also my aunt is also a teacher, so at LAUSD. So I feel very proud that I know a lot of teachers and they've helped shape who I am today. With that being said, I constantly think about how we're going to spend our time in this space right now, and we're going to be very mindful of our own lived experiences. But before we go any further, we have to do something called co-creating community norms. Oftentimes when we enter a classroom space, or we as teachers start perhaps the year, what is commonly in practice is that there's rules and guidelines that are put up in the classroom that are teacher-centered needs. And it's a list, and often there's lots of words that police student behavior. Co-creating community norms is all about collaboration and communication with your students or with your coworkers, sharing space with others, doing community work. What does that look like? We're going to experience it here and now. Regardless of age range, I've taught, let's say the youngest I've probably co-taught is kinder, yeah, and then all the way through 12th grade, just to put that in context. I asked 2 open-ended questions that guide these conversations with my students. How can we make this classroom a safe space for sharing ideas? How can we make it so you want to be in here and share and you feel comfortable learning? Right? How can we make sure everyone feels respected in this space? What does that look like? And when you have your littles, you know, there's some different things like, oh, you know, we should all be nice to each other and use kind words, things like that, right? And as your students age, or even us in this space, it changes the things that we need to feel heard and to feel safe. And we'll go into more why we're doing this work and what Hammond teaches us. But I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment. And we're going to look inside of chat. And I want everyone to think about how you are going to feel safe in this virtual space we're sharing right now together, to lean into perhaps uncomfortable conversations, yes, so that we can grow, so that we can learn. So how are we going to do that together? Can I hear you inside of chat? What's one thing? Assume positive intentions. I love that. Welcome corrections when needed. Choose kind words. Make space for others' experiences. Take space, make space. Listen to understand. Ooh, we're going fast. I'm going to keep reading why it goes. Embrace discomfort. Listen attentively. Expect discomfort. That's real right there, people. Expect discomfort. That's how we should always do it. Because if we're learning, we're often a little bit uncomfortable. We got to feel safe, but we also have to be ready for that. Acceptance. Listen to each other. Mindful and respectful. Speak your truth. Listening to others. Recognize we all have different perspectives. Grace. Validate experiences. Call in instead of calling out. Be authentic. Speak only from your own experience. I like that one. I often say I really like speaking from the I perspective, because I do not represent all people who look like me or share shared identities with me. I am just speaking for Flavia and my lived experiences. I also find that listening and acknowledging, I love that. Hi, Patty, it's good to see you. Speak out your own experiences. Don't anticipate, participate. Has anyone noticed how these norms are starting to populate in space? Have you noticed that the don't or please don't has been removed, and how empowering and welcoming that feels? We need to make our students feel that way. What does it feel like when you go, don't touch that, don't do this, make sure to sit down, only do this when it's okay? That's not saying like, hey, come on in, I want to learn from you, right? It's shutting down when you just open the door and they don't even know you. I love this. I also want to call into space that our identities play a role, whether we're in a virtual space or a real space. Yes. What I mean by that is specifically, if you are a white ally or co-conspirator in a space, you need to know when to not take up space. You need to know when to just listen. To not center your own pain or discomfort that you're experiencing at times. I'm not saying don't process that. but I'm saying you need to be mindful how much space you're going to take up. That goes for introverts and extroverts too. Like for my loud people in the front, I love you, I appreciate you, I can be that person too. But sometimes you gotta like turn that down a little bit and allow for other people to fill the space in the room. I also like to tell my students that please share your ideas with me. That can happen in a sketchbook, that can happen when you write it down. That doesn't have to be a verbal connection for participation, right? I don't need eye contact. I just need to know that you are present, right? I love these. Are we missing anything? Has anyone noticed anything we might be missing? Especially calling my friends who are in the space, who know me really well, who also facilitate. Am I missing anything? Yeah. Yeah, be fully present as much as you can. Yeah. Expect non-closure. Yes. Hello. I love the names in the room. Hello. Makes me happy. Alrighty. So I'm going to go back and screen share. Can we all communally agree that we will mind these norms together? Yes. Cool. Head nods, thumbs up. All right. Wonderful. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. We're going to delve deeper. Hi, Livia. Alrighty. So these are literally the questions I ask. Please jot them down. I find them helpful. It varies per class. And this has changed and evolved for me. This year it has evolved into something a little bit more conceptual with my students, but this is always where I started. Like if you're new to co-creating norms and culturally relevant teaching, then this is where I would suggest to start. Why? Well, let me go back. Okay. Hammond tells us many things about the brain. If I say fight or flight, is that perhaps a familiar terminology for my friends in the room? Do I see head nods? Fight or flight? Yes. So when we don't feel safe, the brain is thinking, how do I get out? Yes. Where do I go? Where's the closest exit? I'm not paying attention to anything else but the concern for my own personal safety. When I feel safe, I'm not worrying about that, right? I'm not trying to fight and I'm not trying to fly. I'm just present and feel comfortable. That means I can engage in my learning experience. Hold on to this. Okay. There's this concept, this practice called Sanchofa. I find that it centers me in teaching. Visually, there's a bird. Symbolically, the Sanchofa bird is expressed with a mythic bird that flies going forward, but looking backwards, right? So the feet are going one direction forward, but the neck is craned backwards. And in the mouth of this bird, there is an egg. The egg symbolizes the future. Overall in Sanchofa, we talk about the idea of it's literally, you don't know where you're going until you know where you have been. So Sanchofa teaches us that we must go back in our roots and back our own histories, our lived experiences before we can move forward. Yes, reflection, meditation. But truly, this helps us discover what we have lost, what we have forgotten, and what has been stripped away, what we need to reclaim, revive, preserve, and perpetuate. This is our journey today. This is interactive, so be prepared. So in order to understand our present and ensure our future, we must know our past. So this can be done inside of a sketchbook or on a pad of paper, but I want you to think about what safety looks like. How does it feel? What colors or textures are present? What is a safe space or a sacred place for you? And those can just be very quick bullet point. It could be a specific room in your house or other things like that. Then I want you to take a moment to write and describe a time when you did not feel safe in a classroom as a child or a young person, as a student. I know some of us are still students and still learning, so I put that. Describe a time when you did not feel safe in a classroom. give about another minute for any thoughts or ideas that are coming to connect with this. You're going to experience me screen sharing and then stopping because I want to see this, because we're human beings in this world. And I'm like, hello out there from Los Angeles. All righty. I want you to think again as a student when you did not feel safe in a classroom. Out of curiosity, I have found in past workshops, many people raise their hand and tell me things like, when I was told to speak English and not my language at home in a classroom. Are there shared experiences in that space? Has anyone experienced that? Head nods. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I was told I was too loud in a classroom, I've always been told I'm loud and I'm bossy. And my mom always just framed that with, baby, you know what you want. You're clear about what you want, mija, and you should speak your mind. But be respectful. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's all right. So again, what we're in the midst of doing is we are responding to thinking about when we did not feel safe in a classroom as a student. We have to start from how we experienced as students to reconnect with our students. Some of us haven't been in school in a long time and you forget what it feels like to enter a classroom that you don't know, the unfamiliar. Most recently, in my own work with my students, I've been referring to it as the desert and the oasis, and I want my classroom to be an oasis for my students. So again, the reason why we co-created those norms is so that our students feel welcome in the space. That co-creation leads to authorship. It means that you care about what I have to say, right? And you're not just telling me you care, you're showing me by giving me agency, by straight up asking me the first time, right? You respect me, you want to hear me. It is teacher as facilitator and collaborator. It is not teacher as dictator, right? We're changing that hierarchical structure of interaction to think about community. And that co-creation actually leads to self-discipline. Quite honest, students hold themselves accountable and one another. They're like, yo, wait, hey, like we all agreed that we weren't going to do this or that. And you're kind of doing that right now. Why are you doing that? Is everything okay? And it comes from a place of understanding, right? Not like, don't do this. I want to be number one, you know, someone policing inside the classroom space, right? It comes with like a lot of communal love. Again, co-creation and collaboration means the teacher cares what I have to say. So when I read this inside of Hammond, I was like, that's what I'm doing. Look, I got like fancy words for it now about what I do when I'm just trying to talk to kids and relate to them. Like how great it's been formalized in a way. So this sends a large message in your classroom. And this is how I start the year and the semester, because I also teach semester long courses. Okay. Now I like to, we got to cite Black women. We got to cite women of color. So Gloria Ladson-Billings, yes, she coined this term. She's the one who created culturally responsive teaching. Okay. And this happened in the mid 1990s. What always behooves me is like when stuff came out or when someone wrote about it, and then how long it takes for that to enter classrooms and enter lived practice. I find the same when we talk about Kimberly Crenshaw, when we talk about intersectionality. Now that's like the new hotness, but people often forget to cite her. And that would happen a long time ago when she wrote that paper. So a pedagogy that empowers students intellectually, socially, emotionally, and politically by using cultural reference to impart knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Okay, so that's where we're kind of starting with understanding what this word means in this practice. Okay. I love this one. A culturally relevant curriculum is one that acknowledges the linkages between schooling and culture and is committed to collective empowerment. That means all students. That means of all abilities. Yes, of all identities. So the why culture. So now I'm going to go back to talking about Zaretta Hammond, who keeps talking to us about the brain. She explains that culture guides how we process. It's literally our brain's software, which is just incredible and fascinating. So regardless of your identities, everybody here has a culture. Culture informs and turns everyday happenings into meaningful events. Okay. So when we talk about culture, I often like to use the example of all of us have a shared home culture. What home's like. I'm going to kind of drop into that and then I'll share some more. Okay, so culture. I want you to think about your culture at home. What I mean by that is when you were raised, so you going back in time again, yes, we were actively practicing Sanchofa continuously up in here. So what I want you to think about is at home, and I'll give examples. How did you know, like, how did you know what you could do and what you couldn't do? How was that communicated? Was that different? For example, in my house and to this day, in my mother's house, my mother and father's house, I just can't open the fridge and help myself to things and the rest of it. The question is like, what do you need? Why are you in there? How come you didn't ask me first? That's something part of the culture in my home. That's cultural. Does that make sense? I never call, the majority of people ever by their first names. It's Mr., Mrs., or Senora, or Sir, or Ma'am. It varies per people. But I want you to think about like the culture of your home, where you were raised. What things did you kind of know? Everyone had a difference. Were you allowed to be super independent and grab things? Home changes for all of us. But thinking about that culture, right? That cultural piece, our home culture. All right. Okay. That's just like a little moment in our heads. Okay. Now, that's not what I wanted to share. That's not useful. Welcome to my messy desktop. I'm a human. Okay, there we go. That's the better one. Haha, that's so much better. All right. So Hammond tells us, I'm going to come back to the home culture. Just go on the ride, like buckle up. I'm going to take you there. It's going to be great. Fantastic voyage. I don't know. It was in my head. Anyways, okay. So there's 3 types of culture: surface, shallow, and deep. Okay. And Hammond breaks this down for us. And this is me just giving you like little tidbits. You got to read Hammond for yourself and digest that. And it's such a wonderful book because it's interactive and there's all these places for you to go in the back and write and take things in. Okay. So the 3 types of culture. Surface culture. It's what she says is observable: food, music, holidays, dress. It can be seen and heard. Quite often, most work around culture ends up only at the surface level in our schools. That's where everyone's like, oh, it's that time. It's Latinx, Hispanic Heritage Month. Let's do it. Let's pull out those skulls, the marigolds. Let's get the slide reel running. Cool, good. Maybe they throw out pan dulce or something, interesting. And then we done, move on. Right? It's like a one-time occurrence, and it's very much so what we can see in here. Shallow culture, right, is often where we're told the unspoken rules, everyday norms, personal space, how elders are treated, eye contact. That's kind of where our home culture falls in, yeah? And then there's what's called deep culture, which Hammond tells us has intense emotional impact on trust. So shallow culture has a little bit of that, and deep culture has the biggest impact on trust. Deep culture is where we learn what affects our everyday behaviors, what helps us make sense of the world, decision-making, preference, our concept of gender, knowing if someone prefers teamwork or competition. That's where ethics, the intangible beliefs, spirituality fall into play. Okay. My example, and I'm choosing to use this example as someone who celebrates Dia de los Muertos in my family. I did not grow up celebrating. It is a choice that I've made with my partner for our children. So that's what he and I do. So, okay, so let's say oftentimes we see Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, represented in school, and it's only shown through a surface culture. There is food and there's some music, but we haven't delved deep into understanding the importance of this holiday. What do I mean by that? I mean to communicate that a huge part of the pictures on the altar are meant to be there to then provide oral history, right? It is a moment to then trace back, that when you look at the picture of my tío Chucho, I can look at it and my son and my daughter go, who's that? And I get to tell a story that I was told, and I am keeping a legacy alive. I'm keeping our culture and our stories as a family alive. The purpose of it is beyond just, oh, when we look at the pictures and there's some food. We have to delve deeper, if that makes sense. Okay. Hammond has this wonderful, wonderful handout that exists inside the piece where she shows us a tree and it breaks it down into surface, shallow, and deep culture. Now, I don't want you to get upset, especially like my art people, like that we're just a leaf. Okay, remember, like photosynthesis is very important. Calm down, it's okay. What matters is that we can go from the leaf at the top and work our way back down the tree. Yes. Let me see if I can tell you. So we're looking at a drawing of a tree. It has roots. It's a line drawing. At the top, it says surface culture, and the following words are in each individual leaf: talk styles, cooking, holidays, songs, art, language, music, hairstyle, food, clothes, dance, games, drama, literature, and stories. In the trunk of the tree are all the different items that fall under shallow culture: concepts of time, acceptable food sources, personal space, eye contact, ways of handling emotion, the nature of relationships, tempo of work, nonverbal communication, child rearing principles, being honest, theories of wellness and disease. On the roots, then all the words of deep culture are underneath: decision making, concepts of self, worldview, definitions of kingship and group identity, cosmology, how the world began, spirituality and concept of a higher power, relationship to nature and animals, preference for completion or cooperation, the notion of fairness. I come back to this work often and think about this tree quite often when I'm thinking about how I deliver information and how I'm explaining works to my students. Okay, we're reflecting again. I want you to reflect on your ancestors and your elders. How were they treated in your home if they were actively either alive or spoken about? How did they make you feel when you interacted with them? And what was their role in your family? This is where we talk about the village concept. Who else is around you and informing your world? So let's think about elders, this piece of our culture. How are they treated? How did they make you feel? And what was their role in your family? I like to call into space that this might be difficult for some people who do not have strong relationships with family members or have family members that could not come due to issues of migration. But try and think through these. Alrighty, I'm going to stop my screen share in a minute so I can hear from you. All right, everyone. So let's think about those ancestors and elders. Who had ancestors on the wall? Growing up, pictures of, right? And when I say your ancestors, that can go as far back as you need to, like one generation, two, but who saw their elders either physically in space? Can I get maybe like a thumbs up or the hand? Who saw pictures? Who had it where they were alive and like up in the space? All right, beautiful. Okay. Yeah, there's lots of pictures in my home too. Beautiful. Okay. What about, let's say, elders in your homes or around you? Like what did they do? Were you being told stories? I was told the same story so many times by my gramps. And let me tell you, I know the story now and I can tell my children, I can tell everybody, I can tell you that story right now. And I did not understand why he kept telling me that story. But you know what? Now that he's passed and everything and I'm as old as I am, I understand why the story is there. I understand the purpose. It just took me a while and I had to keep working through that. I love it. Tell me inside a chat. I'm reading. I feel like it's wonderful to process, visually and verbally with so many stories, cooking, connections. Oh, beautiful poems, storytelling, cooking, nature. I'm getting kind of like shivers in a wonderful way of how beautiful this is, right? We forget this piece. This is a piece of our puzzle to who we are, our identities, our culture, and also our students. What we're doing right now is something you can do with your students, is to ask these questions right here. That can become a writing assignment, that can become a piece of poetry, that can become an art piece, that can, you know, the narrative right there to focus and really bring out student voice is a huge piece within culturally responsive pedagogy. Yes. Ooh. Patty, wow. I'm reading one that says, Grandma said that my Mexican culture was to be forgotten, erasing identity and culture. She's the matriarch of the family. Does anyone else have shared experiences of that where erasure was the choice? Or, yeah. For many of us, it's painful for other reasons, you know, inside of it, erasure. Yeah. I'm a proud daughter of an immigrant. My mom's from Mexico City, but I will say I understand Spanish more than I can speak it. And that has nothing to do with my family. That has to do with my school environment and kids making fun of me a lot. So I'm in the process of reclaiming and learning my language as a point to heal. It's painful. Yeah. So whether it's erasure or if we were given gifts or a mixture of the two, we have such an opportunity in ourselves, right? In our students to create bonds, right? To learn about each other and to be openly vulnerable. All right, I'm going to go back to some screen sharing. Thank you. All righty. Hammond talks to us about cultural archetypes that often people get overwhelmed and like, if everybody has it, like right now we just heard so many different, right, cultures of each individual. Each of us has our own individual culture, right? That's multifaceted. And so oftentimes we get overwhelmed, like I'm supposed to learn every culture inside of my classroom, like, whoa, because we got large class sizes, right? And no, we need to understand. I mean, I hope you want to learn and you know, steep yourself in multiple cultures. But in terms of how we work in the classroom, we need to understand archetypes, right? When we're looking at the world. So Hammond tells us in this research, and it's still relevant today, is that 20% of, you know, we're going to call it like the Western world, right, focuses on individualism. And then there's a whole other 80% that focuses on collectivism as an identity. And that's where all the people of color are from. I'm just going to help you get to that point, right? And so collectivism emphasizes the importance of relationships, right? Interdependence, cooperative learning, right? That's where our grandparents and our ancestors are coming in right there. That's a collective identity, right? That's the concept of like, it takes a village to raise a child, right? That's where that's coming from. And then individualism is focusing on individual achievement, right? And independence, that's more important. I often like to share thinking of, I remember when promotions happened in our family, like for my dad or my mom, big things happened in school or whatnot, and we celebrated that. It felt like a win. The same way I would say for me at my school, we have a Black student affinity group, and with the Black teachers on campus, and there's a teacher, you know, his name is, you know, Dr. Carroll, and I always enjoy saying hello to him, and I always call him Dr. Carroll, even though he's like, you can call me John. And what it is it's a shared collective identity or praise of this person who has a doctorate degree, and I'm proud of what that says for our community, the educational community, the community of me as another Black person inside of that space. So in many ways, collectivism emphasizes. This happens also with linguistic language connections, right? Shared languages when we think about world language and culture. All righty. So this is where we get into these questions. What is culture? What is identity? I'm hoping we're starting to answer these, and we're going to continue. And then what do these mean for you as an educator with your students? And how does this impact our students' perspectives and experiences? Because our goal is to build a shared culture with our students in the classroom. Diane, you have your hand up. Are you trying to let me know something, or do you have a question right now? I see a hand up. Okay, I'm going to lower the hand then. Sorry, everyone. I was like, I saw it up for a while. I was concerned I lost somebody or I wasn't showing you something. All right. Okay. For those of you who are sharing trauma inside of the chat, I offer you space to take deep breaths, to step away if you need to, and to come back. Alrighty, so again, our goal is to build a shared culture with our students. In order that we also have to understand identity. On, let's see, the left-hand side of the screen, there is one example of an identity wheel. I'm going to describe it. In the center, there is a blue circle that says personality, you, your muchness. And then there's a ring outside of it, so it's concentric circles. The next one says internal dimensions, and it has age, gender, sexual orientation, physical ability, ethnicity, and race. Then there's another concentric circle. It happens to be red. It says external dimensions, geographic location, income, personal habits, recreational habits, religion, educational background, work experience, appearance, parental status, marital status. The last ring in the concentric circle happens to be yellow. It says organizational dimensions, work, content, and field, division, department, unit, or group, seniority, work location, union or political affiliation, management status. Now, there's multiple versions of an identity wheel. This is just one. And you can use these with students, so I do change some of those. The organizational dimensions becomes like the school, like what clubs do you interact with, if that makes sense? What sports do you play, ends up filling that spot. Seniority is like what grade you're in, as an example. But what's important is to understand how multifaceted identity is. And we can't understand it unless sometimes we're looking at something visually to help us think through it, for us to understand intersectionality, for example. It's not just race or ethnicity. Identity is complex, and everyone has multiple identities. And I talk about this with my students. And some of these identities put us at an advantage, and some, put us at a disadvantage. Some come with privilege, and some do not, right? Some identities have been oppressed and still are oppressed by societal constructs, and some are not. For example, I happen to identify being a woman. I'm also Black. I am also Mexican American. I personally identify being Chicana. So all those things are kind of like not doing so well for me in the world, in the institutionalized racism, right? But at the same time, I still hold a lot of privilege. I am able-bodied. I was raised Catholic. So for me, winter break and all those holidays work out perfectly for me and mine. And I'm educated. I have a master's degree from NYU, right? So it's something important to think about, is that all of us have points of privilege and all of us have points where we're disadvantaged. When you go through this wheel, you'll find that sometimes you're going to realize you have a lot of privilege. This is me saying to the white educators in this space, when you go through your internal, external dimensions, even organizational dimensions, you might find you sit with a lot of privilege. And that isn't to sit there and beat yourself up about. It's the question of, what are you going to do now? And how does that help me understand my place in the world and how I interact with my students and how people interact with me? Okay, before I do that, I want to know, what do you think privilege is? Can we start defining that inside of the chat? I'm going to stop my screen share and then we're going to come back. What is privilege? What is privilege? Advantages given due to status. What else? Privilege is not having to worry about being pulled over by the cops, moving unquestioned, where you are not up against a barrier that others face, being able to navigate through the world freely without little roadblocks. It's connected to access, power, and resources, power and safety, getting a job easily, access. I'm trying to go through and read mobility, power, and safety. This is amazing. Keep going, everybody. I'm trying to catch up with you. The lack of worry, health. Okay. I love this. I hope I get to save this chat because I want it so good. Opportunities, power, liberty, and freedom, ability to suspend innocent ignorance. Privilege is having access. Yeah, financial security is definitely privilege. Yeah, not worrying about, there's a magazine called Lily News, and it's for women. And they did a poll, and the poll said, what would you do at night if men didn't exist for 24 hours? And almost the largest response was take a walk at night, or go running at night, or go out with my friends. And I remember sharing that with my partner, and he was just like, wow. I'm like, right? Yes. Yes, I love that one. Having your culture considered the dominant or the norm or the most beautiful. Yes, that's what we're talking about with privilege, that you don't even think about your race or pieces of your identity. It's like you don't even think about it. They did studies, particularly with Black women and mothers too, but there's two different studies, but one was with Black women. And they asked them, how often do you think about your race? And they said, every single day. There's not a moment I don't think about it and how it affects me and how I move through time and space. And they asked that same question to white women. They said, I barely think about it. It almost never comes up in my mind, right? And the Black women were saying part of that concern, right? Which also goes, when I say Black, I also just want to like also talk about our brown individuals in the room, right? Like often we get too binary, like I'm talking about brown melanated peoples of the diaspora that way, just to put that in context as I'm seeing faces in the screen and myself included. And that there's also a concern for the people you love, for your families, right? When someone said you don't have to worry about the police. Yeah, like I also don't have to worry that right now, like, is my dad driving right now? Because I worry about that because I live in LA. You know what I mean? Like I worry about my dad when he's out and about, and I'm like, how late are you staying out? And he's like, I'm a grown man, and he is a grown man, and I love my father, but I worry about my father, right? So those pieces in privilege. Thank you. I think it's so important to hear these and read these inside of this space. Okay. Bum, ba-da-dum. It is time for another little activity. All right. So why we have these ideas fresh in our minds, right? I want you to think about personal narrative and storytelling. And we're going to delve deeper into this and how this falls into projects that I do with my students in the land of art, and how it can also be woven into your own curriculum. Our focus is to draw the identity wheel. Give yourself, it doesn't have to be like the most beautiful creation in the world, but however you'd like to create those concentric circles or draw, I want you to take a moment and sit with the identity wheel and to fill it out. For example, age is your age. Nobody else is looking at your sheet, so you do you. Gender, that's how you choose to identify, and your sexual orientation, your physical ability, race and ethnicity. Same goes for educational background. And then if the organizational dimensions are kind of hard to navigate, which like, for us as teachers, I feel like we can tweak where you feel needed. I'm gonna give a few minutes for this and leave this up. I'm gonna drink some water while that happens. I'd like to say and make sure to put out there that every single person in this virtual space is on their own identity journey. Yes. Right. And when we understand identity, there might be things that we're really great at understanding and other places where we're not, right? Like for me, like I understand race and ethnicity very well, and gender constructs, but in terms of being an able-bodied person, I'm working really hard to make sure I'm extremely mindful, right, of folks who are not as able-bodied, and what does that mean for them to access space? I don't even think about it, right? That's my privilege. So I start trying to think that way. That goes the same thing with our conversations about everything being so neurotypical, right? And that we don't make time for our neurodivergent siblings out there in the world, or maybe in this virtual space right now. Right. I know it's a lot to write down, so I'm trying to hold space and not let you feel stressed about going through your internal dimensions. And this is also something that you can totally Google. You just Google identity wheels and it'll come up. When we understand our identity, the personal narrative, right, the way we tell our own story, and then is important to how we interact with our students, because we have to do internal work first, right, before we go out there and start saying, I want to talk to you about something. Like, you got to know how, like, and understand, right, where your privilege sits when you interact with your students and when you're asking questions, right? The same way when you're planning those lessons, to think about, hey, how does it impact my students when I speak to them, I being a person with whatever these internal dimensions are. That makes sense? Okay. It helps us be mindful. It helps us be culturally relevant. Okay. I'm going to open this up. Hopefully I don't upset a lot of people. How are we doing? Are we still drawing? Do we still need some more time? I want a few more minutes. Head nods. Yeah. Okay. I just want to be sure. If you're someone who's like a real fast note taker and you're done, then think about the places where there is the privilege. That's what you want to go to next. Circle where those are and find the places where there is not. It might be overwhelmingly one or the other. Again, just going to say, I'm grateful for you spending time with me today. You are making my afternoon. Okay. Real talk though, when you find yourself with that much privilege, that means that's when you're supposed to be the co-conspirator. That's when you're the ally. That's when you can take the chance to speak up in the room and not say it to somebody after the fact. Like, hey, that was so messed up. So-and-so said that. And you're like, why didn't you say that in the meeting? Or why didn't you call it out? That's when like you're the brave one to step out there and to take those risks for the people of color, like within reason. But like, that's when you put yourself out there in the space, or for the people who are able, right? Like, you got to put yourself out there if you do have that much privilege. That's like, what can I do to change it, right? What can I actively do? Alrighty, I'm gonna check in with everybody. How are we doing? Are we still scribing? We're still scribing for a lot of people, vibing, scribing. Okay, cool. All right. What also might happen for you, which connects back to us talking about our ancestors and our elders, is when you fill out the ethnicity piece, if there's a question mark, or there's a like, I don't really know, or like, I don't know a lot, I want to remind you that that's an opportunity, right? Because part of white supremacy, right, is the erasure, right, of all those ethnic groups, of not having someone, let's say from the old country, that to forget our immigrant past. How are we doing, fam? You okay? Yeah, no, it looks like we're getting a good amount of head nods. For anyone else, I'll make sure that you can, okay, and I can see thumbs up. Lovely, okay. So many beautiful faces. Look at so many people up in here. This is wild, okay, and wonderful too. All righty. Okay, so we're gonna move back through. All right. Ooh. Okay, So the personal narrative. So this, what I'm walking you through that I want you to know is that my intention with each of these activities is that it's things that you can bring into your classroom, right? These you can bring into your classroom, or even elements of it. It doesn't mean you have to give them the whole wheel there too, right? Like you could just give like a little piece of the wheel and slowly build from that. Or just ask the question, hey, what do you think identity is? Like what makes you you? And you'll be amazed at what students come up with. Alrighty. I'm going to take a pause before we go into here because I want to hear from you. But let's see. Yeah, okay, it is there. All right. Just making sure we're all good on our path. So if it makes sense, we've now delved deeper into our identity to understand, right, our relationship with our students. So we can think about what our own culture is and that we're creating a shared culture again with our students. I'm going to say you don't have to draw for this one. You can, but I want you to forage in your environment. And I do this with my students. So I know some of you might be at work, so like work with me there. But overall, I want you to find objects that connect to 3 different facets of your identity. That could be inside your purses, in your backpacks. I'm not really sure where you're at. I'm going to drop this into chat so I can see you. I'm going to put this out there. Hold on, I'm at school and I have people coming to figure out what I'm doing in here. Has anyone ever experienced that where like the maintenance crew looks at you like, why are you still here? And you're like, I'm still here. That's right, I'm still here. All righty. Real life moment. Yeah, like that's just life, right? Like we're just doing it. And I'm not home because my kids don't understand the boundary that like I'm doing a workshop. Like they're not going to understand that. They're 5 and 16 months. They'd just be up in this screen, and my daughter would have probably canceled our whole Zoom by now. Alrighty, it's just facts. Kids are, yeah. I have some great pictures from the pandemic of them on top of me and me trying to like teach with my kids or like wearing a baby. Memories. All right, yeah, we're gonna be okay, everybody. We're gonna be just fine. We're just gonna keep keeping on and holding space for one another. Alrighty, so I want you to think about things either in your purse or your backpack, yes, or around you in your home. And I'm literally asking you, I'll put it back up there. I want you to forage, yes, because I don't want to say discover because that word has issues. Yes, okay. We can delve into that deeper later, but like forage in your environment, right? And I want you to find 3 items that connect to different parts of your identity. Yeah, just looking around where you're at. Looks like some people are home. Some people got stuff that can just be like right here behind this wall. You know, like you can see some things maybe right next to you. I'm going to give you a moment, like what's in your area that you can pull and look at, right? Now for my art teachers in the room, this is where like, oh, we're making a still life, right? There's moments happening. We might find something more interesting to do with it, but cool. Now we're finding a way to have personal narrative come into a still life. And it's not just like blah, a still life that I don't care about, that I'm completely removed from, right? This is me now having to grapple with different parts of myself, right? Do I have, who else is in the room? Do I have like English language teachers up in the room? Like Lang Arts, are you up in here? I don't know, I'm like hands up, shout it out. No, okay, is it just mainly art teacher heavy? Because that's cool. I just like knowing who I'm talking to. Usually helps. Okay, I see a few. Right, so then there's the possibility right there to write, like we could be writing haikus, 100% possible, right, inside of that, of a way to delve into it. The same way we could write a piece of poetry from it. The same way we could choreograph a dance from it. Ooh, let's compose music. Kinders, let's share. Sharing day just got cooler. Yes. Show and tell 100%. Yeah, this is so exciting. Yeah, exactly. So there's all these different ways that we can talk about. I have a kindergartner, he's out there in the world. Yes, I cried at drop off. I'm still the emotional one in the situation. It's fine. But what I think about is like what he wants to bring, right? And how much that informs either what he thinks is like certain parts of his identity, like very sure of, and then things where I'm like, I'm grappling with that piece about you and your gender and like why you gravitate towards, because I have someone who's like, is superhero superheroes 24/7, like Avengers, and then like I'm gonna bring in my sculpture, and I'm like trying to understand this. I keep asking, like, what's meaningful to you? Like, what matters to you, right? And we're learning so much. Too often, in my opinion, we belittle things that students think are important. Who are we to tell them it doesn't matter? Paw Patrol is part of your life. However you feel about Paw Patrol isn't the point, but like that's a big part of who they are, just like unicorns, glitter, do you know what I mean? Or whatever else that they're coming into. We can't invalidate that, right? Because that's where we're just saying, well, you don't like, that doesn't fit into my box, right? Then we're not being relevant to like the popular culture that's a part of their lives. I just ran into this in my classroom. I was like, oh, okay, great. We're gonna make these cool, there's an artist named Roberto Lugo, and we're doing a whole project off of him and Jiha Moon, and we're gonna do these teapots, and we're gonna, do it out of paper mache. And then I want you to pick an icon that's important, right? And then I have a student who's like, I want to do SpongeBob. And you should have seen me, how my face, hold up, where's my mask? Like, it's important for the story. And I was catching myself in the moment, right? As someone who actively practices being like, and I stopped myself, I decentered myself, I held back and thought about what would my reaction be to that student if I was like, you can't do SpongeBob. Like, why are you doing SpongeBob? And I stopped and I said, why? Can you tell me why? Why is SpongeBob so important to who you are and your identity? I got a brief paper. I'm going to tell you, it was a strong thesis of all the reasons why SpongeBob mattered to me and who I am as a person. Okay. And that's because I care what you have to say, right? That's like, don't interrupt me. I won't interrupt you. Like, and I actually want to know, like, please tell me. All righty. How'd we do? What do we come up with? What we come up with? Who's got something to share? Ooh, okay. Veronica's got it. What do we got over there, Veronica? We got books. What else we have? Please tell me what else is in there.
I have a mask from Mexico because I was born in Mexico.
Hey.
Hannibal, one of my favorite figures from history. Not the one that eats people, but the one that almost conquered the Romans. And as my mom,
not Silence of the Lambs. I'm with
not
you.
Silence of the Lambs. The other Hannibal, the co-Hannibal. And as a mom, my son's ID badge. He just started middle school, and it's a big transition for him. And he's on the autism spectrum, so I'm so proud of him and being his mom.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. Sarah, what you got there?
Hi, this is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I have here a paintbrush. I'm a painter, artist. Then I have this chale, tamale by an artist. It's a pin, so it's a cholo tamale, and that connects to like my culture. And then I have here a playing card from artist Naima Green. This is Pursuit. I'm queer, so I connect within this, especially the person depicted here is Erica Hart, and they're someone that I adore and love their work. So these are all things that I found that I feel really connect to me.
Thank you so much for sharing there. Okay, George Reyes, you're up next. And then Michael Angelo Jones.
All right, so I like vintage toys, and I got this one here. I don't know if you all remember the Fisher-Price toys. And my son really loves these too, so it reminds me of him and my childhood. And then this was I'm a video and a drama teacher for middle school, and this was my toy when I was little. And it reminds me of what I was interested in as a kid and what I'm doing now. And this is a medal I got for my master's at CSUN a couple years ago for academic, it was educational technology, so it was academic excellence. So education is important for me, and I brought my son to my graduation. That was real special. So those are my 3 items.
That's beautiful. Thank you for your stories. You guys can hit up with emojis and get crazy on like Zoomland if you'd like. Please like express yourselves or inside a chat. That's beautiful. Thank you. Right? Yeah, there's lots of CSUN alums up in here. I saw that love. It was strong. It was very strong. I love that. And how beautiful that story, right? And how it keeps tracing itself inside of you and your history. All right, Michael, where are we going? Take us on a journey.
So first off, I have jewelry on me that I've had since I was in high school, music that I love, that's just connected to me. And then also jewelry from my wife from our honeymoon that she gave me. The ocean's near and dear to my heart because I grew up in Santa Cruz. And so that's always important to me and reminds me of where my roots were. And then I also have my water bottles that I always add stickers to of all the things I love, art, music, poetry, the ocean, all sorts of things, and all my different water bottles all over my house, my classroom, always have stickers. And then I have sketchbooks everywhere. Sketchbooks from when I was in high school, sketchbooks that I have my students doing, sketchbooks that I'm working on, sketchbooks that I forgot I was working on. So I have them
That
everywhere.
part is real.
Yeah, some are empty, some are full, some have bad drawings, but I have sketchbooks everywhere, which is part of who I am as an artist. So.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Do you see us building community up in here, everybody? Like that. We made it safe. We took some time to talk about a deep idea, some concepts, some pedagogy, and then we made it personable, right? We allowed access in an open space to come through, right? And what's beautiful is then we got Dr. Regine Sims Bishop, like just like being invoked into space consistently, because we're seeing mirrors, we're seeing windows, we got some sliding doors happening. This is beautiful. This can happen in your classrooms. I love hearing the drama teachers. I'm like, get those objects and start something right there. Write me something. I'm curious. What beautiful opportunities. All right, I'm gonna go through. Thank you. Do we have anybody else who like really wants to share coming from another side? I saw like a pink Barbie doll somewhere, or something very pink that someone put up on the screen. You there was like a pink doll with lots of tutu. There you go, Connie. Okay, I was like, Connie, I saw something. Like, who and what is that? You gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
But you said 3 objects. I just looked around. When I cleaned out my mother's house, I found this, and I just had to laugh because it's this beautiful Barbie doll that covers up the toilet paper. And I think, that's my heritage. A woman was supposed to always look beautiful and clean up the shit. So I just,
excuse me. Okay.
That was the role I was given.
Thank you. Yes, that was good, right? But then, okay, so then right there, like let's do that connection though. So then like right there, yeah, too real, absolutely. But then, okay, let's talk about that. So let's say we have this object, right? Or everyone brings in an object, right? And then we can start talking about gender roles, right? And gender stereotypes, right? Then we can connect a whole bunch of different artists who do it, or musicians who start talking about, or musicians who haven't been included that need to be included in the conversation. So there's this beautiful opening, right? That so many things can connect to in such a simple way. I'd also like to throw out there that if you're not aware of an affinity that's happening in this space, it's generational. There's an identity shared in lots of people in this space that's generational. Yes? Okay. I don't share it. I'm like, I think I know, like I've seen that before. I don't share that, but I'm just saying it's beautiful. And that's how we're also building relationship and connection. That also happened for all the different individuals who are like, we got the little like Chola Mabab and we're talking about Mexico and we're having that shared space, right? So it's just really beautiful what's happening in here. All right. I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Yes, this is so wonderful. All righty. Okay. So this is what it looks like my prompt for my students, okay? You feel free to borrow and you can kind of come up with how you'd like to, but it's this idea like you can assemble the objects, right, for your still life, right? And I just have it kind of like a very intro base kind of thing, right? We think about contour line drawing, right? Continuous line drawing. And then I always love to have text because I'm just like, we should be interdisciplinary because that's like the world. But, you know, start to delving into one another, right? And then we start understanding objects and their importance and why they're put in a play or why the character has that in a story, like its larger purpose to a bigger concept of identity, right? That's when those critical lenses can now like come into space, right? And those ideas and memories and centering students, right? Something that's really important to say, I'm going to open this up real quick, is that we need to center our students and also affirm something from them. Knowledge is a form, like experience is a form of knowledge, right? Experience is a form of knowledge. Far often we show up in classrooms and we're like, let me tell you everything. Like they know things. Give them the opportunity to tell you what you know before you like just, you know, start wanting to like come in and throw things in there, right? You know? I mean, you got to be mindful, especially with the kinder's bandwidth. Like you're going to be talking about somebody's lizard for a long time. So you got to kind of, you know, work on that. But what matters is that you do provide this opportunity for student voice, right, to come through, and an opportunity that sharing then leads to, oh, you care about me, and then I want to be in this space. I have a student who makes all of her work about ducks, no lot like ducks, like the little rubber duckies, and no matter what it is, she's talking about deep ideas, but she's like, I'm doing the duck again, and I'm like, and she's coming strong with her. Like, what am I? I'm going to crush that. I'm going to crush the love of art because I'm mad about ducks. I'm kind of mad about ducks, but I love that. Like, I'm helping push ducks to be a vehicle for like, what else are we talking about with the ducks? Because we got to keep, going. But as an example, okay, here we go. So I want to look at work that's currently in the collection. It's not on view at LACMA, but it is in the collection, and it's this piece by Betsabe Romero, and it's called Border Memory. Recuerdo de la Frontera, 2002. Bas relief on rubber, 9 Oaxacan black clay tiles. I'm going to invite you inside of chat to share what you think you see on the tiles. What's happening here? Anybody inside of chat, what do we see? Oh, there we go. I always ask that. I said, what do you see? What can you see and what can you touch that you're looking at? Even if you're not an art teacher, you can ask those observational questions and pull. Yeah. Okay, I got to stop my screen share. I got to open up chat to see, so don't get angry. All right, there we go. Here we go. Possibly indigenous hieroglyphics. I see people running. It looks like a sign on the freeway. People moving forward and something they left behind. People running. Image of family, father, mother, child crossing, running. Figures holding hands. Picture of people running on the freeway. A road people are traveling. People in collective moving. A history, a cactus. Continuous movement. I feel and see movement. People running, people moving. Intergenerational, moving towards something and away from something else. People connecting to each other. Remnants of movement and migration. Migration. They remind me of a children's game. Blanca, I want to hear from you. Hold on, I'm going to stop my screen here. How do I do that? Blanca, where are you at? Talk to me.
I'm right here.
Hi.
Yeah, so the children's song I was talking about, it's the one where like two people like put their hands together on top, and then the rest of the people are holding hands, and they're going around these two like bridges, right? And the song goes, a la vibra de la mar, por aquí van a pasar, los delante corren mucho, los de atrás se quedarán, ran. And then eventually like someone gets trapped right in the middle. And that's what this kind of reminded me of, the movement, and just like the holding hands, like instantly brought that memory into my mind. And I haven't thought about that in like a long time. So I was like, oh, cool.
That's powerful. That's very powerful. Thank you, Blanca. All right. Okay, let's keep looking. All right. So this is where I want to talk about culturally relevant pedagogy and where it can take us inside of a classroom when we're using art. This is where all those community norms are essential to now having the conversation that feels uncomfortable for you, perhaps, or it could be for a student, especially considering our student populations in Los Angeles. So this is where I want us to communally work to think about these following questions. What work does the educator need to do first to talk about a piece like this? How will our norms right now prepare us to begin discussing this work? How will you prepare yourself to discuss migration, socioeconomics, borders, sanctuary, and sanctuary cities? Truth be told, I was planning to teach this before like the world happened in larger context of current events, but it is still a current event happening all the time. So again, what work does the educator need to do first? You can write your own notes first, and then we can kind of start talking inside of chat. We have enough time. What norms will prepare us to begin discussing this work? And how do you think you can prepare yourself to talk about migration, socioeconomics, borders, sanctuary, and sanctuary cities? Now this piece, when we think about this piece in sculpture or as artifact, yes, as artwork, lends itself, this sculpture, to doing the same thing that we were just doing. Does that make sense? Like intentional, the activity that we just did with objects, now we're looking at a sculpture, right? Something that someone made very intentionally, that is three-dimensional, that also is going to tell us parts of their identities. So that's like the, we got the anticipatory set, right? Now we've had like this moment of like small activity that we're doing, and now we're leading into like the larger group discussion. This is where I remind community norms. I put them up on the board. We write them together, right? And then I reflect those up. I often have them up in the room, or I ask somebody to help draw and make them, but they're up so we can see them. I'm like, hey, we're gonna start talking about this work. I wanna make sure before I even get to everything else, like, that we're being mindful of these. And then I might also say, because we're talking about X, Y, and Z, I want to also put these things into play. I also want you to be mindful of how your words are going to impact your classmates, right? We are not turning to classmates and asking them to share their stories right now, right? To start protecting the people, right, who are most vulnerable in the space by talking about the work. Okay. This is where Hammond speaks about relationships are just as important as the content you are teaching. Creating the community norms is what's building relationships with your students and centering student voices. Neuroscience tells us again, when our brain feels safe and relaxed, and I feel like I'm going to be treated well and there's trust, right? I learn. I'm fully present in that space. Right? Because for many of your students, the world isn't safe outside, sometimes inside the classroom, or maybe like right outside the door of your classroom, right? Maybe it's just right outside the door, then it stops being safe. Or once they leave campus, it's not safe. Or once they enter campus, or the world around them, right? Violence to Black bodies and brown bodies happens every single day. It's never something that's forgotten. It's up on the news about 24/7, right? It's on Instagram. It's consistently seen. Okay, so Hammond gives us this equation, right? She says rapport plus alliance equals cognitive insight. Okay, so we're now going to go back and think about this piece, right? Okay. When I talk about themes of immigration, these are some things that I want to try and discuss. This is clearly with my older students. I put that into space, but it doesn't stop these conversations from happening with younger children. I think you just have to take time. All of us have to define terms or even ask what they mean. So student centering, I don't even give them, like I might put a word up, right? And then I'm going to ask, what does this mean? And populate. So let's experience that now. What is migration? Let's go in chat. What is migration? Movement, migration is a natural law, going from one place to another, moving from one area to another for better resources, movement of people from one place to another. Oh my goodness. Is it Marlise Johnson? Wow. We just lost a young life, everyone. So sorry to hear that. Hope, destination, moving from home, searching, moving from one place to another, escaping dire situations, fleeing, displacement, movement of living things for space to better support them. Right. Okay. So that's how you'd start the conversation. Is everyone with me? I like us to experience it. When you experience it, it also opens up your mind, right? Because we all agreed I'm going to be open to learning and seeing what else is there, right? So that helps us side of it. Then it's like I often pull up the definition that I find from, whichever source you'd like to find. Like Webster's dictionary, etc. Like pull up a source. All right. And then after that, these are some questions I'm asking myself. Like, can the discussion of immigration and migrant workers it's important, right, to understand the lived experience of essential workers and possibly your student population. That's what I'm offering, right? This is something we have to do, right? As educators, we got to learn and practice how to discuss the concept of migration and immigration with our students. That's called practice. That's also learning, right? It's taking time to research and to understand and thinking about what we need to be mindful of in the classroom space so that stereotyping doesn't happen, right? And that I'm also making sure that if I'm showing this piece, real talk, if I'm showing this piece in my classroom, I have already shown brown joy. I've already shown migrant joy. You can't bring pieces of trauma or pieces that have those multiple layers, right, of pain that comes with groups of people, right, without first showing joy. You must center joy, in my opinion. That's from the I perspective, but joy, right? The mirror. I want to see myself beautifully reflected, right? The window. I want to look in and see all the things that I want to learn about it that are beautiful, right? Then we can talk about all the other facets of that identity. We can talk about the problems that exist. We can talk about oppression. We can talk about all the other issues, right? But you also need to celebrate brown and black joy in your classroom space. And that comes from you. If you happen to be an educator, you just bring that joy every day. Like, good morning, right? Like, good morning, it's me and I'm here for you. And you see me and and like, it's a beautiful moment. It's the nod. It's like the acknowledgement where you don't have to say anything. It's the unspoken of who you are in a room at times, right? But it's so important to just focus and then do that joy. Yeah. Okay. So then I need to be informed about the world around me, right? And if I'm not informed real time, it's okay to say, I don't know, and we can look it up. I'll come back. Or if someone brings an idea that totally like floors you or something like that, or hey, you get that story, right? You get some deep story about something, right? You also have to make sure you're not trying to out kids, right? Or have kids share points of that trauma they might not be ready to share. That's not our place. But it's talking about understanding something in the wider context, right? There are opportunities depending on your students, right? Like, your students best. I can't stress that enough. Your students, your school community. If it's not you specifically, then maybe it's like, hey, how about on the website or somewhere else, we put these things of what we can do for like our communities, right? Like maybe they should know the immigrant rights, and maybe we should share, kind of like, how to prepare for an ICE raid. And maybe that's like information we should have somewhere on the school website or somewhere inside of another place, right? So that it doesn't just live in our classroom and it can go somewhere else, right? These are discussion questions that you can find. They were added to the document at the beginning that was shared with you by Susie. It's from the LACMA Resource Guide, Artists as Social Conscience. And these are prompt questions, right, that come with it to start talking about the work. So this is already educators from LACMA, right, putting this work together, saying like, what do you notice on the tires? What are the figures doing? What do you see that makes you say that, right? And then like, why are cars consistently repeated in the work? And tire shapes. What do you think the tire symbolizes in the work? What about the title? And then that last one is what you're really, I wouldn't say building up towards, but really anticipating, or where maybe that concern comes through, is what do you think the artist is communicating about US and Mexico borders? Or you can just have a larger conversation about boundaries and borders. And it could become a very interesting conversation. I personally see that coming into concepts of dance and movement very naturally in theater, right? Boundary and border, right? Very naturally of how we move inside of space, and then thinking about literally how we navigate space, right? So again, this is there, the resource, the link is there inside of the document. Okay. And I'm going to hold. So there's something called, I gotta move myself out of the way. Here you go. I found that when I was creating community this year with my students, I used the word oasis. And when I started talking about the concept of oasis, I chose it because I felt sanctuary was very loaded. Not only like sanctuary cities, yes, but that sanctuary also, I feel like, has a connotation to religious connections, yes. And I found this work while I was reading called A Sanctuary, a Manifesto, that's also in the document. And it is a creation by refugees and by people seeking sanctuary. I started asking this question and giving context of where I got this information to my students of how can sanctuary be created? How can it be protected? And I shared the list that was made by people seeking sanctuary. And then we talked about how to carry sanctuary or an oasis with us. Like, how can we take it wherever we go? So just to be clear, we talked about it in its context to migration and immigration. And then we also talked about it in the context of our room as a community, because, right, this is about community. And like, how can we make this place feel that safe? I'm gonna pause for a minute to kind of give space for some questions and kind of come back to, what do you think you might need to do to talk about the work? All right. Yeah, Baltimore Press. Yeah. Thank you, Susie. Susie just put the teacher programs and resources back inside of the chat. Thank you. We appreciate you for our learnings. I'm reading, I'm catching up on the chat. It keeps going. Yeah, centering joy is very important, I think. Like, yes, I'm using that work, but I would put that work being framed with like multiple pieces, you know, by various artists, right? So that if you are talking about an experience, it's vast, right? And to be mindful, especially when we're talking about how we want to frame that, Latinx, Latin, you know, that the world, Latin, you know, like that you're thinking about the diaspora, right? Like, not just saying like everyone is doing this one thing or everyone's having that same migrant experience, right? Often I'm like, where did you come from? And I'm like, oh, cool, like cool, we're gonna do that, right? Or like, your mom, yeah, was it a hard journey for you guys to come over? Like, I didn't come over, you know, and like, no, it wasn't a hard experience for my mom and her family. Like, you know, like it was hard once they got here, but like, no, it's all good. Are you legally here? I'm like, you need to stop, right? And like, this is when we get in conversations with dreamers and things. And I joke as a form of coping, right? That's like a clear mechanism of me coping, but like, right, like it happens far too often, right? The same way that can happen where everyone's staring at that one kid inside the classroom, if that's happening, right? Whichever their identities can be. I teach a lesson on critiquing examples, how we choose what we say. Yes, I love that. Peggy, if you're asking what books I'm referencing, I'm going to share all my resources at the end. So don't worry, I got you. I know we're all big on resources. Like, how do I actually do this thing? So that's my goal, is like, I often find sometimes I attend PD and I'm like, that was so awesome. And like, my head hurts. And like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to bring that to my classroom. And I don't have hours to spend to like delve in that when I'm like in the teaching, right? Because like, if you're already home, you know, you're going to like do dinner and then like maybe you do lesson planning, or that maybe that already happened and I'm happy for you. But like, you still got the whole next day and your preps happening in your head. And I find often when I learn something new, I'm excited. I'm like, how do I do that tomorrow? So like, how do you do that tomorrow? What's something that someone can maybe perhaps share? I want to give that space, right? You know, what is that? What is an impressive? Does it cost? Oh, I'll share my information. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to like do that too. I'm just reading chat. But I'd love us to think about, what's one thing that you feel like you can bring tomorrow inside of your classroom, or like next week that you can bring. I would love to hear that inside of chat. Centering student voice. Joy first, 100%. Love that. Agency. And when we're talking about those classroom norms, just to, yeah, creating them together, like if you already did like the what I want to say, if you already did the like these are the rules jam, you could just be like, hey, like I'm so about being transparent with my students personally, where I'm like, hey, you know what, I was thinking and I did this thing and I kind of don't like the way I did that and there's some problems with it, and so I want us to try something new. Are you down to try something new with me? Are you down to like try something different? And they're like, yeah, okay, like, you know, I don't really know what she's talking about, but like, sure, okay. And I'm like, all right, like we need, like, let's try and rethink this space, right? I love this, affirming students, creating norms. Yes, we got to affirm, we got to celebrate them. Personal experience, yeah. Sketchbook prompts, yes. Identity wheel, love that. Allowing students to have, yeah, have a comfortable space to learn in, yeah. I love these. All right, so let me share, can I do, I want to hear too, let me do a little bit more, but I wanted to share what I've been up to too, what it looks like. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Amara. Right? Like talking about trust in the classroom, because like you're a stranger, right? Like I think about how oftentimes we're like, I want to see, especially in like arts, but I think it goes for across the board. We're like, I want to see you in your work. Share with me. Share with me. Well, are you sharing? Real talk. Are you sharing? Because you can't just be expecting people, like it's a giving, right? And a getting back. It's back and forth. I saw you there, Liz. Yes. Like you, it's a two-way. You can't just like tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. Who comes up to you and you're like, yeah, let's be friends. Like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how human relationship works, right? Just because they're little doesn't mean they don't have that right to expect something in return. And if we're not having and teaching them that, then what are we doing? What are we teaching these little people, right? Like real talk, what are we teaching you? Like you just go up and like transaction, please, ticket, right? Like that's what's happening. I keep it real up in here. I hope you don't mind. That's how I serve it. Okay. So I want to share with you, and then move past this, relationships, right here. That's one of those, like, if you didn't write it down, relationships are just as important as the content you are teaching. Yes. So important. Okay. Oh, wait, no, I didn't want to go there. Don't take me somewhere else. Okay. Here we go. Next slide. Okay. All right. So again, I love that people are saying I need to affirm my students. Yes. And Hammond tells us it's a learning partnership. So good job. Like I'm clearly giving good notes and we're doing a great job synergizing and thinking through all this information. So each part of the following is essential. They're stepping stones: affirmation, mutual respect, validation. Like all day, every day. It's not really like a cool acronym that we can come up with, like AMV, but like AMV, right? Affirmation, mutual respect, and validation, right? I always think about that personally. I'm always like, what are my goals today? I'm going to affirm today. I'm going to make sure I'm showing mutual respect, and then I'm going to validate, right? Sometimes you can't validate at all, but like find something you can validate, find something you can affirm, right? Okay, so what this looks like specifically in my arts classroom, like how culturally relevant pedagogy lives and breathes in my room. Dialogue. Good morning, Nina. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Jasiri. Good morning. I say good morning to every single student and their names, right? And then I do the check-ins. Like, I want to know how you're doing. And sometimes they're like, man, you know, like whatever. But, you know, like, how are you doing? Or I pay attention, like they had a game, right? So-and-so plays basketball. Now, I'm not gonna say I'm old, but like personally, I'm a parent, and so like my mind's filled with a lot of things. So like I keep notes, like it's real. Like I have my little, like inside my planner, like whatever it is, I have notes, and I kind of keep track of like what they're doing and what they talk to me about. Because then there's this great opportunity to check in, and then it's like, oh, she cares about me, the person. You just don't see me as student sitting in the chair, right? There's more to me, right? Okay, and then choice and personal narratives. Rock it all day, every day. That's I think it's beautiful, and they're so hungry to share themselves, especially when you're like, I want to know, and equally sharing back, right? And then especially the critique, and I think that exists in any format. I mean, we always talk about the norms, and that critique is love, right? Critique is this opportunity for me to grow, right? And I should lead and show that by first bringing in something that I've made. So they watch me be vulnerable, that they watch me put myself in that situation. And I even say, I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I feel like you're judging me, you know, and we talk through that. And it's like, do I think you're judging me? Or do you think I'm just nervous because I care about what you think, right? And you get back into your students' shoes. Okay. And we talk about, you know, art and its relationship to other artists' ideas, right? That art is constantly in a conversation with you, and your art is in conversation with the world of art. right? Back and forth, give, take. And the sketchbook prompt, that's really how I understand their deep culture. Now, no, I'm not saying I want to understand your deep culture, do sketchbook number, whatever. No, but does it make sense that like our taking away when we just all found our objects, like our foraging, right? We went way past, like we started but you know, like we started delving deeper. Stories started to come out, sharing why these things matter, right? How it connects to deeper points of my identity. Okay. What this looks like. These are my students' sketchbooks from last year. I give a variety of prompts for my students. Like I let them choose between maybe like 3 prompts. Sometimes there's just one, but oftentimes it's like there's 3 prompts, choose one. So there's choice inside the choice. You feel me? Like there's freedom. And this was talking about imposter syndrome. And so she was also listening to David Bowie. Yeah, Life on Mars. And then we talked about burnout, especially with my high school students. So I was providing art as a means of also self-care, art as a means of understanding larger things that are happening to me, centering their feelings. Because sometimes you don't know where to put it. And it's a beautiful opportunity as teacher, as facilitator to say, hey, put it here. This is burnout. So these are just in their sketchbooks. We have mixed media sketchbooks. And what's beautiful is that relationships are built, does that make sense, with my students once they share the work, once they're open. Okay. And just, I want to feel the room. Are we enjoying the sharing? Because like we can do something else. I always like, I got a plan A and a plan B. Is the sharing good? You want to see what that's looking like? Okay, just checking. All right. I was like, I can stop. All right. So technically speaking, my first project of the year, no matter what, is like a get to know you project. That's like end base. I want to know who you are. I want to get to know you. So what that looks like. So on the way some of us end up thinking inside of our classrooms, we're like, what skills are they learning? I got to get them here, right? We're scaffolding. That's great. I'm not saying don't scaffold. So cool. Over there are all the skills, right? Positive, negative space. We're going to talk about conceptual art, line and value and symbolism and layering and elements and principles. We're going to talk about that. I'm not worried about that. I know I'm really good at doing that. That's just like kind of like not mechanical, but I'll say that's not as important and it's not as hard as the other stuff. As a culturally relevant stuff. That's where you have to put the focus and the time. So for example, I want to learn about my students. So the entire project is based on getting to know them. I ask them 2 questions. What are you passionate about? Like / what inspires you? And then what's something that scares you or makes you uncomfortable? I ask them to mind map. So I'm like, put yourself in the middle, right? And then you draw the little lines. You have your little mappy. Everyone should be familiar with that term. Okay. And so, or you can Google it. It's very simple. You just look up mind map. It'll show you an example. And when I introduce the mind map, I share mine. I'm going to get all big with that. I share mine. They have to see mine. I'm being equally vulnerable. I'm like, okay, cool. Here are the things that scare me. Here are the things that, like make me tick. So I'm like, my family, right? And art and museums probably make me live and breathe, and dance. Like those are my things. That's what makes me come alive. That's what makes me feel human. It's what makes me happy. It's like what it ignites the fire inside of me. Like that's me. I don't know what that is for you. What's that for you? Right. And I said, the fears, I said, now I know you could go and you could talk to me maybe about like spiders or something, right? But I want you to delve deeper. What's something that really scares you? And then I'll share something like, what scares me is my children forgetting me. And I got a whole, and they're all like, whoa, they're like, that's heavy, Miss DW. Like, whoa, you just like, that's whoa. Like, they're like, oh, like, and I was like, yeah, we're up in our feelings in class. Like, that's right. And I'm up in my feelings with you. I'm here, right? I am being vulnerable and I'm sharing, because I just can't expect you to want to just share your whole self, right? Like at a drop of a hat, right? Like that doesn't work, right? It's 2 ways. Okay. So then what happens is the final work. Okay. What you're looking at is, let's see, multiple pieces. So there's a large piece of white paper and different techniques, let's say non-traditional techniques using like a squeegee. Yes, different colors of paint have been laid down and they've pulled the paint across the piece of paper. On top of it, you're going to see two different things. There's three different pieces of paper that are brown, and that's representing the student's fears or what scares them. And then in white is what inspires that student. So you're looking at a multiple cutout, let's say. So it's positive, negative space looking at a ship with a cork in it. Yeah, like a bottle, and a ship is inside with a cork in it. And then on the edge of the ship, you're seeing a little town or city, like a silhouette. Okay, and then on the three different pieces of paper, you're going to see Ouija boards, and then I forget what the other piece, but anyway, it's like Ouija boards inside of it. So this student was telling me that there's this song. It's not Message in a Bottle, right? Which like made me feel old because I was like really tried. I was like, what's another song that has bottles? And anyway, that doesn't matter. But she said that this song is everything. It's like wherever I travel, wherever I go, it takes me somewhere else, right? Like this song is like, it can come anywhere. And it's just like, it makes me come alive. It makes me want to draw. It makes me want to paint. I was like, beautiful. Okay. So yeah, we got positive, negative space. We talked about color with the mixing in the background. Now these pieces in the back was what frightened her. And she's like, the occult, like magic on like those levels, she's like, really freaks me out. And I was like, all right. She's like, it like frightens me. And I was like, okay. These students equally, so this is 7th grade at the beginning of the year for me, just to put context. So these works equally. So these are the shares that started happening. Secrets, broken trust, not being able to open doors. And then in the white, you have a light bulb that has a silhouette of a tree inside, and then roots. And then on the top, you see a cityscape. On the other side, you're seeing, what do I see? A hibiscus flower and roots. And then there's doors and clocks and cages and time. This one, I still currently teach this student. He's in 9th grade right now. So his loves are reading and water polo. His concerns are money, his parents getting the marriage breaking, which now it has, and heartbreak. That's from my babies. Like those are my youngest that I teach now. Those are like my littles now. I know it's not kinder, it's totally different. I respect all you kindergarten teachers. Thank you for what you do. You should get paid the most. It is so hard. Thank you for your patience with our children. Just want to put that out there with love. But that's what I got when I shared, right? And the artist that we were looking at, her name is Swoon Caldonia Curry, right? She does all these really beautiful cutouts and hangings. I can put her name inside the chat in a minute. And then my 8th and 9th graders, I teach a very specific, like I teach drawing and painting in 8th and 9th grade. And so this is the work of my 8th and 9th graders where I'm centering student voice. I'm like, what do you want to make work about? What's on your mind, right? And then I asked them the question of Oasis and Sanctuary. This is last year. Where's the safe space? What does it look like? What's there? Is it real or imaginary? And they had to just make sure to add themselves in some capacity to the work. This piece on the side with a young girl stretching backwards, reaching, and then different tentacles and sunrises are attaching to her. And then there's large mushrooms kind of in the foreground, and then jellyfish drifting off into the upper right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you're seeing an image, definitely like Picasso blue feelings kind of coming through. It's a blue face, monochromatic with lots of orange and yellow gold curly hair, and the eyes have these concentric circles coming out, and someone's stretching their face, looking in much distress. I asked them what they care about. So they're telling me their stories. I have, people who are so deeply in love with the earth and are deeply worried. So I have activists, individuals who are talking about their own paths within finding what they love. She's talking about how ballet was so constraining and how when she found jujitsu, she didn't know she could love something so much that didn't feel confining. And so then how she felt she broke free. I know I'm almost at time. I see it. Thank you. And then this is a project I did last year, playing around with ideas of invisible walls and borders and map making. So the artist as cartographer. So I asked them to pick different parts of who they were and their worlds to depict as a map. Like if I could go there, what would it look like? Every student interpreted the prompt completely differently. They picked 4 different sections inside of their sketchbook that they then taped together. They created their own compass rose. So in one corner it says comfort, and there's a landscape with trees and a waterfall with a bridge and a train passing through. On the next part, there's a home. And then there's multiple houses where a waterfall is falling down next to it. And then trees that say new, and then a broken train track. Every student chose to, again, react to the prompt in a different way. So this person did sadness, calming the different lands, and they used music the entire time in the 405 freeway to talk about their trip on the way to school and the way back and what music they listened to. Okay, before we have a little bit of time to end our conversations, I would say, like, I invite you to screenshot this, to take a picture of it. These are the books that have grounded me in my research and in the work that I do with students. So Zaretta Hammond, Culture Responsive Teaching in the Brain, Mohammed, Cultivating Genius, Culture Sustaining Pedagogies by Django Paris, and then Teaching Educators as Critical Storytellers, Effective Teachers as Windows and Mirrors. So I'm going to invite you to take screenshots of that. And then I'll try and see if I can eventually put those inside of Real Space and Time, like in the links side. And culturally relevant pedagogy right here, asking a different question. This is fire right here. I mean, all of it is, but Gloria Ladson-Billings, like right here. So everyone, I'm going to invite you to screenshot that for another minute. And then when we have our closing time, we end at 6:30. It's 24 right now. So I'm going to hold space for some last questions and time together. My good friend Lauren put in the chat also sharing what I do when I'm not teaching and not sharing what I do. And that comes to, I have a Patreon called Adding Voices. We create a newsletter and we share lessons for art educators. And then you can find me via social media, Adding Voices, and then Flavia ZW_HW art. I can put that in the chat in just a minute. So I invite you to dialogue with me, but remember, like, I'm a person, I'm not like a full-fledged resource. So I invite you to like read and learn on your own. Alrighty. How's everybody doing? Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Lauren, for my friends in there. How are we doing? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that you enjoyed yourselves, that you feel empowered. I hope that you feel inspired, and that you have things to take back to your classrooms. Oh, thank you so much. This was a lovely opportunity. Thank you, Lara, and thank you, LACMA. So much love to everyone for sharing your stories and creating this beautiful space for us to learn and grow together. Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, thank you for shout outs to Adding Voices. I'm so glad you're inspired. Yes, wonderful news is that that I'll share with the community here, even though it's not everywhere yet, is that Adding Voices will be in real time and space in 2022, which is very, very exciting on the East Coast. More coming your way on that via the land of social media. Please reach out if you have questions or if you want to follow what I'm doing. Thank you so much, LACMA, for having me here. Thank you, Lara. Also, thank you, Susie, for all of your help. Thank you to our interpreters and everyone inside of this space. Thank you so much. Oh, this is fantastic.